All right, welcome back. Thanks to all three of you for being here again. We really appreciate it. So I want to start with sort of a broader question of what role does the outside group play these days, and how it has evolved. I mean, we've gone through a decade of incredible legal change where at least two of you probably wouldn't have existed, a decade ago, and now all three of you are up here spending more money than God. Let's start.
You write my budgets, that would be amazing.
So let's talk about the outside group. What role does it play in not just modern democratic politics, but modern politics more broadly?
Whoever. For us at our level of the ballot and working within 50 states and 50 sets of state campaign finance laws, which we should all just think about for a minute and how horrible that is, it's important for the outside groups like mine and like the partners that I worked with on my IV to be able to navigate those laws when our candidates can't. A good example is New Hampshire, where they can raise like $4. Connecticut's got pretty strict laws as well. The outside groups are able to go in and fund actual robust campaigns, whereas our candidates on these smaller limit-sized states can't actually fundraise legally in a way to get a lot of these communications done.
Yeah, I'd also say for us at NextGen, we play a year-round infrastructure building role, and so while a candidate has to raise money, win a primary, raise more money, win a general, go to Washington, raise money, we're always there, always doing the work. And one of the things that's really nice about what we're doing with a pretty narrow lane of focus on young people is we can focus on what are the tactics that are going to work the best with those folks. We don't have to think about the whole electorate writ large. We can use our year-round infrastructure to build something that will speak in particular to this group of people. And frankly, more importantly, I think with us for young people, they have incredibly good BS detectors, and we know that candidates sometimes aren't the best messengers, and we're not all so lucky to have Johanna Hayes as our candidate, and so we can come in as an authentic group of young folks who look, smell, talk, sound like the constituents we're trying to get out, and do it for them so the candidates can be more boring. Sorry, on Friday.
Look, I think outside groups for a very long time played one very narrow role, and that was to run negative television ads for Labor Day on. And I think what we've seen, partially as a result of the campaign finance landscape that we find ourselves in, is that outside groups are taking on more and more with regards to digital field and becoming year-round robust operations that really have their own infrastructure. And so, I'm cognizant that we are the last panel between you all at a bar on Friday, but I would be remiss, obviously, if we did. I think that the work that Rebecca at the DLCC does not get enough attention and enough praise. It's incredibly important. They did amazing work this cycle, and we don't pay enough attention as a movement writ large to down ballot races, especially at the state legislative level. And then also the work that Ben and NextGen and his group do around youth vote. And you saw the numbers that they put up earlier. It's really amazing stuff. So I'm just really proud to have worked with it.
Oh, man.
Those of us who spend our time covering state legislative races
I was really report.
Patrick, so you mentioned that the modern super PAC is now spending on TV, on mail, on digital, and all of this. This is sort of for all three of you. Do you see one or another of those mediums as sort of your primary lane, and one or another as most effective?
Right. Well, coming out of 2016, we had a lot of reflection time, and one of the reasons why we decided to keep going was because we fundamentally thought that the Democratic Party was getting our ass kicked when it came to digital communications, not only financially, where in House races last cycle we were in the single digits in outside groups in terms of how much was spent on digital advertising, and this cycle was over $30 million that was spent on digital advertising, but also tactically, that oftentimes when we did invest, we were putting 30-second television ads on Facebook. We know that's ineffective, but oftentimes just not a lot of outside groups and campaigns don't have the resources to do anything else. And so we decided to help try to fill some of that gap, both financially and tactically, by building a very large in-house production team where we have 45 people who just did production all day, every day. A lot of them didn't come from politics at all. It was their first political job. And so, I think that is, for us, was a really critical thing that we wanted to do to fill that gap.
Yeah, I agree. We've been doing a lot of digital work for the past few cycles. It only gets bigger, it only gets smarter, it only gets more creative. One of the things that I think is cool is it's not just a paid media strategy, it's actually just a strategy writ large. So the tactic that I'd say we invested most in, that we'll continue to invest most in, is actually people and field organizers and doing the work on the ground. We had 750 staff on the ground and over 16,000 volunteers across the 11 states where we were working in. Part of the reason I think that is exciting is because those are the best ways to get people to vote, especially Tyrone, who's hanging out on the couch, when his buddy comes and talks to him, not because he saw a 12-second Snapchat ad, it's because his buddy is telling him this is why it's so important that you get out and vote. So to me, I actually think the thing that we'll invest in is people, and I actually think we're too late on this. The other side has been doing this for a long time. Americans for Prosperity, the biggest thing they invest in is people as well. So to me, digital and field together are going to be the way that we get it done.
Yeah, we were in 12 states via the IE this cycle, and I will say it's different in every single state. So a lot of places may have a good field operation and we don't have to go do that. TV's tough for us because there's a lot of bleed over into places where you don't need to be. And so for candidates and for the IE, I didn't run any TV ads. Candidates did, but I chose this cycle to invest in digital. I actually spent half of my budget on digital this cycle. We did do mail. I think that we've got to meet voters where they're at. So whether that is a layered communication that is mail and digital, and if we know from the hard side that they're doing a bunch of door knocks, they're getting touches in all the right places. It's just coming from different organizations.
Ben, I feel like this is the one that touches on your emphasis on field. You mentioned Americans for Prosperity. I feel like the biggest knock that we always heard on outside groups going into field is that's what parties do. You can organize around the concept of the Democratic Party and the concept of the Republican Party a lot more easily than you can around something like Next Gen that is sort of an amorphous idea. How do you actually build a field team that's not just people you're paying?
Yeah, well, it helps when they don't like the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, because no one wants to organize around either of those for our folks. I agree. Hashtag Youth Vote is not a great candidate. It's the closest we have, and we tried to build it. I mean, we made hats that said hashtag Youth Vote, just like you can make a hat that says Hayes for Congress. For us, the idea that we relied on ourselves as the people that we were excited about from a field perspective. We went out and evangelized and said there are more young people eligible to vote than anyone else, but we only turn out at half the rates of older Americans. We have the power, we're just not using it. And people got really excited about that because they've been told for so long that their voices don't matter, that Washington's not going to listen to them. And we actually were like, look, it's just facts, it's just numbers, it's a chart. I mean, I had a lit piece that had a giant bar chart on it that just said, here's how many of us there are, and here's how often we vote. And the fact that you could organize people around a statistic, I think was a good feeling. And then again, they want to organize around their community. If we have people, we have people doing work in Flint who had never done work in electoral politics before, and they didn't really give a crap who the Democratic nominee was, as long as they beat Bill Schuette, who was the Attorney General who made it so that they didn't have clean water to drink. And so the fact that we could have some community leaders and say, okay, y'all, this is, you know how we've been organizing around how our water is dirty? This is what we're doing now. We're electing a Democratic governor. And they didn't have to fight and squabble over who the right primary candidate is. They could just start working with us. All right, Phil.
Well, Rebecca, the D-Trip, for the first time in the cycle, spent a lot of money on field organizing. Did the DLCC do any of that? Did you think about it?
The IE did not. I will say the hard side, and via our caucuses and the work that we do to partner with candidates, they knocked on $17 million, and that's outside of any of the coordinated campaigns with any of the top of the ballot. Unpaid.
Patrick, where is the balance between TV and digital? If you've got $1 left to spend, how are you going to spend it? Does it differ by place or by race, or talk through that?
I'm going to say something sort of radical for an organization that has spent 100% of our paid media budget on digital advertising. In 2020, we are not going to have a digital department. It's not the way that organizations, it might be about to be organizing themselves structurally. We're going to have a paid media department. And that department is going to figure out who we need to talk to and where they're at, and then they're going to divide our budget based on where they're spending their time for entertainment and news. That is going to result likely in a radically different ratio of spending between television and digital than most organizations invest in. And so, to answer your question, it's really about who you're trying to talk to and where they're spending their time. And that we don't view it as who is online. We view it as who is not watching TV. There are far more people who are not watching television anymore than people who are not online. That is the world we live in. And we need to figure out how we reach those people in a very difficult media environment where Trump is all consuming and where we are competing with, especially online, all of their friends, pictures of your friend's dog, pictures of children, and Procter & Gamble is advertising at you. So we have a lot of competition, so we have to be very creative in terms of how we reach people.
And I just want to piggyback on that. It's not that people, we talk to all these young folks, right? And they have a TV, or they'll steal someone else's TV password online. Like, it's just not an efficient way to spend. It's fine if you want to spend it. You're just going to spend 10 times more money than you need to in order to reach the people you really want. And that's one of the nice privileges of working on digital.
That actually brings up an interesting point. If you're getting your net or your sling or whatever from your ex-girlfriend's former roommate's brother, are you getting advertisements from some race 2,000 miles away from it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Rebecca, how do you have where were the voters that you were trying to reach on digital?
Again, it varies so much by state. For us, it was, Wisconsin's a great example because you see in Wisconsin, Tony Evers won like 52% of the vote. We actually lost a seat in the state Senate and picked up one in the state assembly. It was a big target for us because it would have been really easy for us to pick up. And for us, it was trying to drill down to who were Tony's voters and figuring out how do we get those lookalikes and make sure that they are voting all the way down. And they weren't. And so we ended up losing the 4 seats that we were targeting. And it was just frustrating because sometimes the top of the ticket does really drive a lot of what we do. But also, it's just the way it is, right? There are other states, though, where we knew that we had a model specifically built for state legislative candidates that the hard side built out. And so we were able to use that and target our voters based on what they knew about who was in charge of their state legislature, if that person shopped at their grocery store, if that kid went to school with their kid. And so it got hyper-local really quick for us, as it always will, depending on the size of these districts.
So I'll ask you the same thing I asked the 3 guys up here earlier. What was your operating assumption about 2018, when the cycle started, and how did that change as time went on?
You got it, Pierce.
And I didn't actually join the DLCC until 2018, but I will say when I got there, it's a big job. It's 6,066 races, and you've got to take a look at what makes sense for us to go and flip, or where can we make enough gains that it will matter in 2020 ahead of redistricting. So for me, it was, what is a strategic 2-cycle play, and how do we get there? For us, these 2-cycle plays are places like North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, places we didn't pick up but made really significant gains. Places we thought we could pick up, Colorado, both chambers in New Hampshire, Connecticut, we actually did flip those, and those were good investments. So for me, it was interesting coming from a federal background to get to this level of the ballot and try and figure out, okay, you have $6 million. Like, I could have spent $6 million on Twizzlers on Ted Strickland's race, and it wouldn't have done anything. But for these races, a lot of them are investing on the hard side just tens of thousands of dollars. So my tens of thousands of dollars that matches that on the IE is significantly more powerful than probably, on the federal races, it's got to be like, if I give you $10,000, Patrick, like, what would you do, right? Right. So for me, it was sort of a scale down, but also a scale out into figuring out what does this battlefield look like, and how do we scale the organization, but also just the IE and what our partner organizations look like in these states. I think, there are IE tables everywhere, but they're usually focused on the gubernatorial or the Senate races or, even some of the AG races. But the legislative guys are kind of like, you're at the kids' table, and it's just like, okay, well, let's do a call. We have $4, right? Like, it's tough. It's tough to do.
You all have worked on the campaign side in the past. What made you decide to leave that side of the field and play on this side, on the outside side?
I mean, at a very basic level, I got tired of living on a blow-up mattress. So that was pretty strong driver to settle down.
Yeah, I agree. It's just so I can live in San Francisco. But no, for me, honestly, and it comes down to efficiency. If you're trying to get 50% plus one of the votes, you're not going to try crazy risky stuff. Sorry. You're going to be doing the tried and true things that you think will move the needle a little bit, because you need to move the needle a little bit in order to win. And for us on the IE side, especially when you have an in-house billionaire, which I can recommend, like you have the opportunity to do some long shot things, like go after people with a turnout score of 0, because you know that if they're going to turn out, they're going to vote for your folks 100% of the time. And so we have the luxury of having 18 months to think about a really hard political problem of people who aren't sporadic voters, they are never voters, and really think through what are the things that you can do in order to motivate them over the course of a long period of time in order to then get them out to register and to vote. So it's just fun. Like, that's a fun problem to solve.
You don't have to worry about swearing. We're among Democrats.
Yeah, last night Piercy and I were on panels and we had drinks. And there was a lot of F-bombs. Fox water.
No, but to your point around testing, I mean, like that is one of the things that I think was one of our biggest emphasis this cycle was testing everything we did and not making assumptions in the front end, particularly around creative. In mobilization, for example, one of the things we learned through doing all the testing that we did is, make a plan to vote is something you see everywhere. There's plaques everywhere. They were literally on the side of HRC building, downtown DC, and then social pressure. Your friends are voting. They're going to know if you don't be that person. There's so many tactics you often find, particularly in the mail. We found on digital, those tactics don't always translate. And often social pressure seems incredibly creepy online. I've seen ads that your friends are going to know. It's a really creepy experience. And that we have to get more creative about how we're, particularly around mobilization, talking to voters about the importance of voting and the fact that that voting can lead to change in your community. That's not often about Trump. And I think left or right devices, for example, in the Alabama Senate race, where we talked a lot about Trump, or the fact that Warren Moore was a pedophile, or the fact that he was friends with people in the KKK. What we found was that talking about positive issues, particularly around education, was actually the most effective thing in turning out people to vote. Had we not tested that beforehand, we probably would have made a mistake. But that was often a luxury of the campaigns came through.
Rebecca, you want to?
Keep going back to the hard side. You can
Yeah.
see it.
Honestly, I really wanted to do work at this level of the ballot because redistricting is so incredibly important. We are going to draw the lines in 37 states for legislative and congressional districts in 2021, which will be in effect until 2032. So think about that when I'm talking about majorities and how a $10,000 is going to make a difference in some of these races, whether or not we flip a chamber next cycle. But this next cycle for us is for all the marbles, and it's for it's for federal stuff, but it's also at the legislature where laws get passed that affect everybody's everyday life. So it's school funding, it's shitty roads, it's car insurance in Michigan, it is clean water, it is everything that happens in your actual home gets started at the state legislature. So majorities are important. I think they're important to legislate and to govern, but to me it's much more important for redistricting because I think we need that for our for commerce. And so for me it's twofold. Yeah, it's not a campaign, but I am really fucking tired.
Yeah, we're not Democrats, it's okay. What did all three of you learn in this cycle that you're going to use to make your organizations or your next campaign a better one?
I'll start. So at the beginning of the cycle, I think we had a hunch that, more than a hunch that for young people, it's not D versus R, it's voting versus not voting. So we spent all our time and energy thinking about how do you get someone off the fence between voting and not voting. Young people broke for Democratic House candidates by 44 points, 71-28. That is by far the largest margin ever, better than Obama ever did with this age cohort. That means that the GOP knows that they have lost this generation for a generation. And the thing that I'm learning, which is frustrating me, is that means they're not going to compete for them. They're going to try and make it harder for them to vote. And we saw this happen over and over and over throughout this year. The new crazy roadblocks that got thrown at our voters in order to discourage them from participating, whether it was a mental discouragement or a physical barrier. And we cannot go into 2020 without making that actually a core tenet of our GOTV programs and our registration programs. We have to be prepared for war.
What do you mean mental roadblock?
Disinformation campaigns, people telling you that your votes don't matter, people telling you that the candidate that you think you're excited to support is actually not who you think they are. We see it all the time. It's like it's infectious. When one person sees it and one person hears it on Facebook, then they're going to go have that conversation with their friends and with their peers, and that's actually where it's hard. So it's not just that, the morning of election day at Virginia Tech, they changed where the polling place was. That's a physical roadblock. It's more that over the course of a year and probably decades, people have been telling young people that their votes don't actually matter, and that even if their candidate wins, nothing will change because the whole damn system is corrupt. It's time to combat that.
Better get it down. Look, Andy, for us, it was to continually test our assumptions and assume that we're going to be wrong a lot of the time. I mean, some of that obviously was born out of 2016, but we saw it again and again this cycle in terms of not making assumptions about who is going to turn out to vote and not narrowing your mobilization audience based on whether or not they voted in an interim before. In an election like this, particularly, and I think we need to continue doing that in the presidential year. We're going to have a lot of new voters come out. And then on the creative side is really testing whether or not what we think in our gut is good is actually effective at moving voters. And this includes both on TV and on digital. I think a lot of people make conflation between something getting a lot of shares and likes and a lot of engagement online towards being actually persuasive, both in terms of somebody changing their mind to vote for somebody or deciding to vote in the first place. I think what we realize is that engagement does not always equal persuasion, and that we continually have to make sure that what we are putting in front of people actually works to the best that we know how. So that's one of the things that we definitely take forward.
Rebecca, what about you?
Sure, I think on our end, early investment really matters. And that is not just at the caucus level, but also, investing in those caucuses and making sure that they've got good staff on the ground who can recruit and train really good candidates, who can raise money, who can do all the things that good candidates do. But also on the IB side and within our own building, making sure that we're investing early in retaining our good staff, expanding our data departments. And then from the IE perspective, I will say, and also from the hard side too, we want to make sure that we're starting early with a lot of the data and research so that we can provide this to our candidates so they're able to use it all cycle long, not just in the on-year. So for us, it's also like accountability is a big thing, keeping a lot of these vulnerable Republicans vulnerable and shoring up our vulnerable Democrats in places that we think have an opportunity to flip either way in 2020. Yeah, the early start is really like a big piece of what we aim to do. And I mentioned being tired, but we're already planning for 2019, and we're doing that on Tuesday of this week. So there's no sleep at the DLCC.
Good, there's no sleep anywhere. What's something that either you did this cycle that you wish you had done differently, or that you didn't do that you wish you had done?
I would say the early start. Really, I think it's investing in the data and research that helps shape messages for candidates and for the IE spending that I wish we would have gotten started sooner. It just didn't. I mean, shit happens, right? But I wish I would have gotten started sooner.
Yeah. I think mine's kind of, it's niche. We, like Patrick Malcolm, with the folks at Priorities, are doing a lot of digital ad testing and being very weird with our creative, and I'm really excited about that. I mean, maybe you won't talk about it, but they have a great 15-second spot with a bunch of singing puppets that I recommend that you find. And we self-censored sometimes because we would do some testing and we'd say, oh, in this controlled testing environment, this message or this video or this ad works the best, right? And then we let it loose, or we then tested it in the field as well as sort of in a panel environment, and it just didn't do as well as we thought it might because it was boring. Like when people have to sit through something and watch it, they're like, that was very persuasive, I will now vote. But when they're scrolling through their Instagram feed, they're like, this is a dumb white guy, this is a dumb white, you know what I mean? So we ended up getting weirder, and I think that really, and it's hard to imagine.
So on brand right now.
I was like, I don't know, Jesus is good though. Thank you, Grant. We ended up getting weirder, or at least more different. You know, we had a digital spot where someone is attacking a gay wedding cake with a hammer and saying it's Republicans. We did a dance video where there's an Obama soundtrack. Obama's talking about how young people need to vote with a beautiful dancer dancing. We know that kind of thing will break through more, and we have to make sure it's most persuasive and motivating folks. But we gotta get out of our little political silos and do the stuff that people like to see on the internet.
Yep. I mean, I think one of the things I wish we had done, and obviously it's sort of funding dependent, and it's a problem across the board in the progressive space where our funding, unlike the other side, it comes in late. And this is across the board for campaign committees, campaigns, organizations in the independent space, where the Koch brothers fund year-round operations, development infrastructure. We oftentimes don't. I wish we had started earlier talking to people, both in terms of persuasion and mobilization. That's something we intend to do next time. I think when you see, using TV as an example, it's easy. When you see media markets that have 5,000 points of television by Democrats holistically in one media market in 1 week, that is absurd. We are moving nobody. That we have to get out of the mindset that we have to match them point for point. Because it just doesn't, it gets to a point where you're just not moving anybody. And you might as well take that extra money and put it in a big bucket and light it on fire because it's having the same exact impact. And so that's one of the things that, I think that you want to talk to people early and make sure that we're always investing our money in the most effective way and not falling into sort of the easier ways of it.
Let me ask some sort of specific issues to each of your organizations. Patrick, Priorities USA said that it would not support Joe Manchin after the Kavanaugh vote. Is that the role of the super PAC, to be the sort of ideological policeman, or why did you make that decision?
Look, every organization makes its own decisions. I think for us, it was just a pretty critical moment for our organization in terms of how we wanted to spend our resources and our time, and we wanted to spend those resources and support it. And we thought that was just, in terms of our thought of where our staff was, that was sort of why we needed to draw. But every organization makes its own decisions. And then when it comes to the 2020 primary, we are completely neutral. We'll never take a position, with the exception of Michael Avenatti, who should go.
I think he's doing that work himself.
None of the reporters clapped for that.
Ben, speaking of every organization makes their own decisions, Ben, NextGen was in early for Andrew Gillum in the Florida governor's race. Talk me through why that decision, and do you wish you'd done anything different there?
No, I don't wish we had done anything different. So Andrew Gillum, in my mind, is a once-in-a-generation candidate. He had, that primary was so interesting. There were 4, sometimes 5 serious candidates there. And in Florida, we saw that you could win a primary with 30% of the total Democratic vote, and that we expected 27 to 28% of all primary voters to be African American. So we saw there was an opportunity to win. Never invest in a primary where you don't have a chance to win, I guess, is my gut feeling. And Andrew is a transformational candidate. He's someone who, by the sheer virtue of his candidacy, could get people off the sidelines. And at the root of what we do, our job is to get progressive young people off the sidelines. And we thought that he was so unique in his ability to get that done that we wanted to have his back. The thing that I'll note, we spent a ton of money in Florida, and I'm really proud of it. And a lot of that money was spent after Andrew won the primary. We played some pretty smart money ball, I think, pre-primary in order to get him to that, I don't know what he won by, with 33, 34% of the primary vote. We spent basically $600,000 on our own individual mail, digital, and field programs. And gave Tom gave $500,000 to the campaign itself, which in the grand scheme of things is not a lot to win a primary in a state that is the size of several European countries. And I'm still so proud that we did it. I think Andrew actually changed the ballgame of what it means to run as a Democrat in Florida. It shows that you don't have to be a middling former Republican in order to be close. I think that there's a lot of things that I wish the state of Florida had done differently, which would have let him be the victor, personally.
Rebecca, if you'd had an extra $100,000, where would you have gone? What did the DLCC leave on the table just from lack of resources this year?
Do you want my pre-election day answer or my today answer?
I want both.
Wisconsin State Senate was a real heartbreaker for me and for my IE team. I think that we felt like if the environment had been more favorable for Democrats, we could have won. But looking back now, I know it wasn't the environment, it was the maps. Like, we are doing the numbers right now, but our legislative candidates outperformed Tony Evers based on the raw numbers, but with the maps, we ended up losing a seat. So just let that sink in. But yeah, with the $100,000 the day before the election, I would have went to Wisconsin. I might still go to Wisconsin.
Perfect. True. And our last question before we unleash everybody on the bar: what did you all see that some other group did that you were envious of that you want to adopt it on your own?
Ross, other than that. Y'all go first. I haven't thought about it yet.
Look, I think that MoveOn did some really interesting work to help inform our work, particularly around digital. They did some interesting things in terms of doing first-person shot videos of voters talking about why they were making the choice they were making, either for a particular candidate or to turn out and vote in the first place. And they saw that it was an effective tactic, and we sort of used that same sort of style of video in a lot of our persuasion and mobilization campaigns, and it really helped inform a lot of our work. So I think they did really great work and helped us.
I think, some of the work that both of you did that was a little bit more viral-y feeling is something that we could have leaned into on the IE side for my candidates. It's tough though, because if you're in 10 districts in Pennsylvania, they're probably all pretty different, right? So it's hard to figure out a way to do that that's candidate specific. So for us, it would have to be something that is a little bit more templated and probably just wouldn't be as cool.
Yeah, I think about all the groups out there, many of whom are super local that most of my friends have heard of, that actually have been putting in the work to get their teams to go run for office. So I think Run for Something is riding a wave of a lot of different groups that are getting sort of young, non-traditional folks out to vote. People like New Era, Colorado, and the Ohio Students Association, or Move Texas. These are groups that are building their own bench. Not even on purpose, but just because they're resourcing young people to go kick some tail. We had a staffer who had to quit for campaign finance reasons so he could go run for Iowa City Council. And I wish we had his back, you know what I mean? I think we could do a lot better, and we will do a lot better in the future, making sure that because our young people deserve to be in charge, we'll help train them to go run themselves.
All right. Patrick, Ben, Rebecca, thank you all so much for being here.